Steve Sarkisian has received a raise and an extension that has him coaching the Longhorns for the long term. Let's talk about whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing and how it's going to affect college football and college football coaching. And I promise I got a Deion Sanders take in here. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show or you are a returning viewer and you have not subscribed, I'm going to ask you to do that. It's free. Check to see. Some people think that they've been subscribed to this show for a couple of years. They look down, they say, oh, no, I'm not. Ring the bell if you don't want to miss any of the segments that we upload right here to the show. Join the nearly 130,000 people that make up this community and answer the question below. Do you think that locking Steve Sarkisian up was a good idea for the Texas Longhorns? Yes is the answer that I have for you. A resounding yes. Like, look at what he has done at Texas since getting this thing on the good foot, all right? Their last year in the Big 12, they win the Big 12 championship, and they make their first appearance in the college football playoff ever. Ever in the era, ever. And they get to be one of those teams that say, we are one of the last teams to make it when it was just 4 teams that were selected, joining Oklahoma. And we are one of those teams or we're the only team that made it in the last one where there were only 4 teams selected, and the first one where there were 12 teams selected, and we still ain't get past the semifinals. Just like, well, nobody else, because they are the only team that gets to have that moniker. As a matter of fact, it is indicative of what college football has become here in the last few years. Anybody can go get it, and anybody can go get beat. That's what has been really cool and really, I think, difficult for some traditionalists to keep their hands around when we talk about college football today. But that's why I'm here. I got you. That's what we do here. We keep it locked on what we're doing here. And even I have probably beat the ever-living crap out of Ohio State Notre Dame, which is going to be played on Monday night. But this news comes on Saturday when the NFL is in the middle of its divisionals, which I think is interesting because Steve Sarkisian is one of those coaches that was being floated for head coaching jobs, notably the Dallas Cowboys, and what he might be able to do. I think his offensive coordinator stint at Atlanta was long enough for him to figure out, I don't need to be doing this. I need to get back to college. And he did, right? Coaching in 2020 with Alabama, helping them win a national championship on what I think is the best team of the playoff era. I mean that. Like, I think that team would have beaten 2018 Clemson and 2019 LSU, but we'll never really know. And then he takes Quinn Ewers, who can't play an entire season healthy, and a really decent to good wide receiving core, depending on how you want to look at this year versus last year. They've had some superstars. Don't get me wrong. Like, Xavier Worthy is a superstar, right? Well, I think Matthew Golden's going to be a superstar in the NFL. And turned in some outstanding performances. This year, they go 13-3. They beat the Big 12 champion Arizona State Sun Devils, and they make it to the Cotton Bowl, where they face an Ohio State team that has been playing its best football and might be the best team in all of college football by the time we get done playing football late on Monday night. He's been 38-17 as a head coach, and this raise already increases him to being he remains one of the 5 highest paid coaches in all of college football at $10.4 million. That's going up. He is extended through 2031. And again, they're right where they want to be. They are competing for championships. They played in the SEC championship game. They could not get past Georgia after Georgia was able to really beat them up defensively in both of those games. And a lot of this, I think, came down to the quarterback and what he was or was not able to do. I think Arch Manning is going to be a step forward for them. It also helps the Mannings feel better about who the head coach is and who the play caller is. And they're loaded for bear going into 2025, even as they're losing a ton. Now, where I'm already headed with this, and we haven't even played the last game of the season, is Michigan fans were always trying to yell at us about how much they lost last year and, what they are ready for and what they're building toward in 2026. You're going to hear a lot of that from Texas because everybody's going to say the same thing. We lost a lot of guys that got drafted. We are young. We're turning over. But that's not necessarily true in today's college football unless you want it to be. Think about what Kurt Cignetti was able to do at Indiana. You can go get players. You just have to nail your talent evaluation. You have to know what you are buying. And then you got to go put it into work, right? Like, that's just what it is. Like, Trey Moore did not have the kind of season I thought he was going to have at Texas, but Colin Simmons did. So, Barron Sorrell did. Like, Alfred Collins did, and on it goes. Like, they had some hitters over there. Andrew Makuba, Jade Barron won the Thorpe Award. I think Michael Taft is going to play a long time in the NFL. He's second-team All-American. They've got some dudes. They've had some dudes. Hell, Jalen Ford was a monster for them for a few years back in there. I think that this program is right where they want to be because along with Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, a couple other places, they are willing to spend the money necessary on the staff and on the players to go get it. Like, Texas has always been money. Texas has always had money to go get stuff. And it's been frustrating the last decade or so to see them do so little with so much. Now, it feels like with this guy at the helm, they're in the middle of a golden era of football for themselves. Maybe Steve Sarkisian turns into them what Mac Brown once was, right? The guy that can lead you to a national championship and do it against what we think is one of the better teams to play in the sport. Like the 2005 national championship in the Rose Bowl. It's one of my favorites because Vince Young was looking at Reggie Bush and going, that's my Heisman. Reggie Bush won the Heisman Trophy, and Matt Leinart was a Heisman Trophy winner. And they still were able to get it done because they had the better player, right? I think given the same sort of athleticism that you could see from Arch Manning, it is not that big a stretch to see Texas right back in the 12-team playoff competing for a national championship, maybe as one seed with an SEC championship. But this extension guarantees him $74.2 million, according to The Athletic, which is not a small chunk of change. And again, it makes him one of the third highest paid, I believe, coach in all of football. Like the first one would be Kirby Smart, making about $13 million, and then Dabo Swinney's making about 11 plus, right? Those are guys with multiple national championships, and their salaries reflect that. Steve Sarkisian is head of the field that includes Mike Norvell, Lincoln Riley making $10 million annually, Kalen DeBoer making $10 million annually to coach their respective programs. Now, I think now that it's kind of cooled on the Deion stuff to Dallas, though, if there was another program, say like, I don't know, Tennessee Titans, for instance, and they wanted to go do that, maybe you have to look at Colorado and go, are you willing to pay to keep Deion there and make him one of the 5 to 10 highest paid coaches in all of college football? Maybe it doesn't get there. I do know that he is looking for an extension and a raise, frankly. I mean, he's going to make $5.9 million this year, and he probably should be closer to 8 or 9, given what he means to Colorado football, because we know what Colorado football is with Deion Sanders as the head coach. We also know what Colorado football is not without Deion Sanders as head coach. Now, there's one way to do this, right? Like a headline could be, should Steve Sarkisian make more than Deion Sanders? You're going to have an opinion about that. And I think sometimes one of the things that we gets into this, especially as we're talking about news that happens, I think y'all make it not that much fun to talk about. So I try to talk about it in that way, going, who do we compare him to? So if you compare Steve Sarkisian and Lincoln Riley, it's easy to see why one guy should be making way more than the other guy. But one of those guys is coaching at a private institution where they can afford to just kind of play funny with the numbers sometimes, because they don't really have to report this in the same way that a state-funded land-grant university does. But when you're looking at what Steve Sarkisian was able to do compared to what Kalen DeBoer has been able to do, dead ass, he is the more valuable guy. I mean, both of them made the college football playoff last year. One guy went right back to it with the same kind of program, same kind of team. The other guy took a step up, we thought, from Washington, Alabama, and couldn't get there and suffered a loss late in the season that torpedoed their chances when they went to Oklahoma, got beat by a team that finishes with a losing record. Like, these things, I think, matter. I think we're also looking at a Sarkisian that was one of those guys that Alabama wanted to go get, who's very happy at Texas. I honestly believe that Texas is one of the better coaching positions in all of sports. I mean that, like, full stop. Like, I put it up there with Ohio State, with coaching the Dallas Cowboys, with coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers, with coaching the Kansas City Chiefs, Manchester City, Manchester United, Barcelona. We keep going on this one, man, because I really do believe being the LA Dodgers manager, man, you know how much I would love to be Dave Roberts right now, where the rest of Major League Baseball looks broke compared to me and my roster and what I have now that I've got. Dog, the rich just keep getting rich over there, and Dave Roberts ought to run up the score. All power to my man's over there. All power to him. But he's one of those guys that we expected to continue to ride the extension train that comes when the NFL be like, hey, it seems like y'all got a few nice college football coaches over there. It'd be a shame if one of them decided they wanted to coach in the NFL. Well, many of those guys know what it looks like when they do that. Just ask Steve Spurrier. Doesn't always go well. Went well for Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll built different. Went well for Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson built different. Went well for Barry Switzer. Took over what Jimmy Johnson built for the 1 year, won their Super Bowl, and bounced. That's what I would do. So I think that they're in the right spot here. And given what this class is looking for them and looking like how many players is going to get selected, the money's going to keep pouring in, their collector's going to keep growing, and Texas is in position to capitalize for the long haul. That is the point.